can do orally with our little bitties, and we start doing that. Another one I would love to do a session on is just background knowledge, because without that too, we're not going to be skilled readers. So here are all the things it takes. We start separating them out at the beginning, and we become more and more strategic with our language and more automatic with our word recognition. So those skills are all very important. Similarly, we have the simple view of writing, which again, we've talked about several times this week. So I'll go quickly. Again, it is a multiplication equation. And so in our foundational skills are the ones that we've been talking about this week. Handwriting, spelling, punctuation, spacing, just how to form our letters. We talked a lot about that yesterday. And if you didn't get to come yesterday, I will be posting our webinar on the ELA framework so that you can find it there. And I can share that with you again. I was sharing it with some at the beginning of the meeting. Then we have our text generation. So you can see the things here involved in that. And it takes all of these to become a skilled writer. So again, a multiplication equation. If one area is low, if one area is a 0, our output's going to be 0. So I have to do all of those. Again, here's the writing rope. Here are the areas of the rope that are required to weave together to be able to make a skilled writer. This year in my English Language Arts newsletter, I have a link in my resources for you to sign up if you haven't already. I'm going to go through the writing rope this school year, and we're going to talk about each one of those things and how you can incorporate them into your classroom. So if you don't have my newsletter and you want to know more about this and how to teach writing using it, I have a link in what I'm going to share with you, and you can sign up for my newsletter and be able to learn about that with us. So we have the reading rope and the writing rope, and our goal today is to show how spelling and spelling works with reading and writing and how it's important for both. Okay, so we do have state standards for spelling. There are 3 areas of our standards. It's in standard 2, spelling and encoding. We're going to spell and encode words, syllable types, and use structural analysis. So 3 different areas we're going to look at today as we go through spelling instruction. So I'm going to try to do a poll, and I want you to answer this question for this poll. Can you see my poll? Yes, I actually signed up on my phone today so I could see what you. If you can read a word, you can spell it. So please put your answer in and let's see what everyone thinks. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to put your answer in. Not minutes, but some time. I almost have everybody answering it so far. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. 92% of you agree or disagree that if you can read a word, you can spell it. Okay, so if you can read a word, you can spell it. Most of you are saying, no, I can't spell every word I can read. And then 8% say, yeah, that's true. Okay, so let's try another one. Here's my second question for us to think about today. Let me get up that poll. Back and poll 2. Launch. Here's our second question. If you can spell a word, you can read it. We're a little more mixed on this one. Tanya, what link did you lose, hun? All right, we've got 80%. Okay, so a few more answers are popping in, and let's share our results. So we have 71% of you agree and 30% disagree that we can't read everything we can spell. So let's do some activity here and find out the answer to those questions, okay? All right, we're going to take a reading test. And I'm going to watch your lips for those few of you that got your camera on, but I want you to read these words out loud for me. as we do this reading test, and I want to see if you can read these words. All right, here we go. Read the word, please. And since I can't hear anybody, I'm going to just pretend, oh, good job, you got that word. Next word. All right. The next word. Acquiesce. That's a harder one. We might not all be able to read. Okay, this one. Inconvenience. I see some of you reading. Thank you very much. Okay, you guys did great on the reading test. These were, okay, so in this activity, all the words I took are from the most common word list of most common misspelled and hardest to read words for adults. So I'm doing this on an adult level, but you would, have your own words that kids can read. Okay, so I'm going to teach you a strategy for how to teach students to spell some of these words. We're going to practice just one of these words, and I'm going to show you some ways to practice. And we're just going to practice spelling one of them. And let's see if this word strategy helps you spell a word. So the word that's very hard for most adults in our country to spell is one of them is conscientious. So I'm going to help you work through this word. Everyone read the word for me. Conscientious. Very good. How many syllables are in this word? Now, I wouldn't show the kids this, of course, until after we counted the syllables, but everyone count your syllables. And they would say 4. And then I would show how those syllables break apart. Then we would say the word again. So say the word again, conscientious. And when I do this in person, it's wonderful because I can hear all the voices and all the things. But when we do that on Zoom, it just makes for, messy noise. So we're going to adjust as we have to. All right. Now, what prefix can you find in this word? And so the kids would say con, or my adults would say con, and then I would highlight con. Do you see a suffix? Now, suffix can be more complicated here because when I did this in person, we had 3 different suffixes that popped up. But in this case, it's TIOUS. Okay. And then we'd ask them, what is the root word? In this case, it's a root and not a base. And so then we would say the root word. All right. So all that said out loud. All right, now we're going to write this word, and I just want you to write the prefix. And today you will need paper. So if you don't have any paper and a pencil, please grab some because we're going to take a spelling test in a minute. And I'm going to need you to be able to write your spelling words down and hold your paper up for me. So, all right, so write the prefix, please. And so students would write con. All right, now I want you to write the root word. So they would write the root word and now write the suffix. So they're spelling just the parts of the words. Now I know you're thinking, my kids don't do words like this. Yes, I know. I'm doing this on an adult level. And in a minute, we're going to break out and we're going to talk about how we could apply this into our grade levels. Okay, so it's still a great practice. If you're not going to do syllables, we can do letters and the same kind of thing. So it's just a strategy that you can use to teach words. All right, now we're going to write our word, but this time we're going to start with the suffix. So the kids would write the suffix first, and they would write it at the end of the word. So that's a teaching point, because when I did this with a live group, there were some teachers who wrote it at the beginning of the word. So we want to tell them, suffixes always come at the end. So we write it in that last box. Now I want you to write the root word. And now I want you to write the prefix. What was my word? Conscientious. We would be using this word in a sentence every time that we talked about the word. Okay, now con means with, and TIOUS means having. And okay, so guys, I looked up this root word in 3 different sources, and I got different meanings, except the French root to know came up the most. So that's the one I went with here. Again, this isn't a word you'd be doing with your students, most likely, but it means to know. And so I can kind of figure out the meaning of this word, and I've been using it in sentences, so in theory. And so it's having to do with knowing something. Now, there's a word I know really well called my conscience, and that word is a related word to conscientious. My conscience is that little person on my shoulder that's kind of telling me in my ear what's right and what's wrong. And so my conscience is that sense of knowing what's right and wrong. So if I'm conscientious, the meaning of that is to desire to do what you know is right. The conscientious student did her homework every night. So I have broken this word down and help to figure out the meaning. This is that part I'm going to show you toward the end. This is stuff you could do with fourth and fifth graders if you're teaching those grade levels, but not with this particular word. I'm doing it for you guys on your level because I'm hoping when we take our spelling test, you're going to be able to spell conscientious now. She is conscientious and a hardworking employee. So I would use it in a sentence, as many different sentences as I can, showing that meaning. And then we've practiced how to spell the word. Now, okay, I'm not going to do breakouts for this one, but we'll do a waterfall. So a waterfall response is you're going to all type in your answer to this question. And then when I count down from 3 to 0, and I say 0, you're going to hit enter and you're going to drop your message into the chat, and then we'll share some of those together. So how could you modify this strategy that I just showed you for your grade level? How could this strategy work for your grade level? Small groups using weekly vocabulary words. Wouldn't that be great for finding meaning of vocabulary words? Yes, for little kids, we can do beginning, middle, and ending sounds. Have them spell CVC words and add blends and diagraphs. We could do the same thing, breaking it into sounds instead of syllables. That's right. We could do it as is in second grade, especially for those multiple syllabic words. And I know from second, third, and fourth and fifth grade, multiple syllabic words freak them out. How wonderful would this strategy be for spelling and reading? Because remember, we're talking about how spelling and reading connect. How spelling and reading those multiple syllabic words would be, this strategy would work wonderfully with that. My kids would start crying. Oh, I can't read that word. It's so big. And I said, we would say things like, Miss Barris, I'm just a little kid. How can I read such a big word? And then I would teach them something like this. And then they were like, oh, it's really not that hard. It has an ing and a at the beginning. And oh, it's not so hard after all. So it's a great strategy. It is great with vocabulary, with the prefixes and suffixes. I can't wait to show you some stuff on that. Grade level words, discussing how words can be made of many parts, color-coded sticky notes with fifth grade vocabulary. All of this is great. Base words and suffixes for those first graders, adding those inflective endings. Fifth grade, write them in columns. Oh, I can't wait to show you, Jeannie, some strategies for that too. Help fifth grade identify root words, modify. I see a lot of you, because vocabulary is an issue. I know it's so hard to get them to learn the vocabulary. So this morphology type of activity does work well with that. Have the students write them in a sentence, use them in a text message. I love it, fourth grade. Some people are doing the same thing with small words, compound words. All of these are great, great answers. Thank you guys for sharing how you could modify, because when we're in a setting like this and we're talking to all grade levels, we have to think, how could this work for my kiddos? Okay, my friends, get out your pencil because we're going to take a spelling test. And because I've been a long talker already, I'm not going to give my sample sentences like that you would. You're going to always, 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 always use sentences, but I'm going to go a little more quickly. Okay. So our first word is inconvenience. Inconvenience. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so I can. Not being nice to me. Okay, the next word, acquiesce. Acquiesce. The next word is conscientious. Conscientious. The mouthful for me today. I have gone blank on the other word. Well, does anybody remember it? Okay, well, we'll just do those three because I've changed it recently and now I can't remember what words I put in.
I think it was entrepreneur.
That's it. Thank you, Heather. Entrepreneur. Like I said, I just changed it and I was like, oh no, which word did I take away? Entrepreneur. Okay. And I think I went out of order. Unfortunately, that's okay. We're going to figure it out. So when you have all your words written, we're going to check and see how you did on spelling those. Because remember, we're trying to figure out if you can read a word, you can spell it. And you guys read all my words. So let's see if you can spell all of them. I always have somebody who does make a 100. Okay, the first word, we're out of order. That's okay. But entrepreneur, check your entrepreneur. Okay, hopefully we did good. Next word. Here we go. Acquiesce. It's a word we don't use that often. A little bit of hard one. Check yours. All right, our next one. I bet you got this one right, especially if you did the strategy that we did. And our last one, inconvenience. I cannot spell this word. In fact, I spell it so bad that spell check doesn't even correct it right for me. There's no dictionary entry with my spelling of this word. So I'm going to be practicing it. Inconvenience, convenience. All right. How'd you do? Drop in the chat how many you got correct. Oh, Darlene got all of them. 2 of them, 3, 2 correct, 2, 2, 2. Did anybody miss inconvenience?
Yeah.
Okay. All correct. We got a couple all correct. Good deal, guys. Well, you're better spellers than me. I think I got one correct the first time I took it. So, but I never was a good speller. I'm a better speller now that I've learned the letters and science of reading and all of those things. So, all right. Well, thanks for sharing your result. Let's quickly go over why we're going to even teach spelling because, we've kind of gotten away from it in recent years. People aren't doing spelling the way we've always done it traditionally. And I would say my opinion is that's good because we need to be changing how we do spelling. But why is it even important? So we're just going to go over this quickly. Louisa Moats says when you're teaching spelling, you're teaching reading. And I think we can see that if we can spell a word, we most likely could read it. I think you guys could read more words than you could spell. So spelling is a much more difficult skill than reading. And so a rule of thumb is, so with spelling, we're teaching it together during our reading. We're in spelling and writing. We're all doing that together with these little grades. But by the time we get into after first grade, kids are learning to read much faster than they can spell. And so we need spelling not to be a separate part of our day because after first grade, they're reading so much better than they can spell because reading is actually an easier skill than spelling. Better spellers are better readers. Spelling instruction supports vocabulary. We just saw that with our experiment we did, our strategy. It also helps with comprehension. We can see that with our strategy. Now we can understand a word better if we understand those prefixes and suffixes and root words. And then it also helps with writing because if we're not having to spend our cognitive load figuring out how to spell a word while we're writing, then our writing will become more fluent. We talked a lot about cognitive load earlier this week. Louisa Moats in the book Speech to Print. I have a copy here. It's a really great book if you want a book to help you with some of these things. Language Essentials. Spelling is a visible record of the language processing. It's language written down. And there's so much that you can get from a spelling inventory that if you do a spelling inventory with your kids as a screener, you're going to learn right where you need to be teaching them to read, where they're reading is the breaking down. So spelling, because it's a visible record of language, it's really important to teach it and to assess it. So what do we need to teach? Well, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but I think of it as a three-legged stool. And we have to have all three legs to be able to sit on that stool. So the phonology is the sounds of the letters. The orthography is the symbols that go with those letters. And then morphology is that meaning, which we get into at those little bit higher grades. So we're going to give a few activities for each of these areas, and then hopefully you will find something that you can take back and use with your kiddos. All right, so let's just go over some basics of what and how to teach, and then we'll get into some strategies. We always start with the simple and move to the complex. This is where a spelling inventory would be important for you at any grade level, so you know where to start. Where's the simplest place to start with your kiddos? We always want to start with regular and predictable patterns that follow a logical sequence. And I have linked in our session notes some places you can go find those sequence. If we have time at the end, we'll go over some of those. We also do phoneme graphing correspondence. So we're going to look at the most frequent spellings first. So if we're teaching the sound of C, the K sound, we always want to start with the C because 73% of the time, the C is making the K sound in the English language. So that's where we'll start. We start with that, and we do. Most every program you've ever taught has started with C first, right? Before they teach the K. Then we have K, 13% of the time, K makes the K sound. And we have all the rules about C takes these vowels and K takes these vowels. We have all those rules. But if we teach a kid, if we know they've got that C sound down, 73% of the time, they're going to put the right letter when they're spelling that sound. So then we can see other spellings have less percentages. So we always want to start with the simple and the most regular first, and then move on. And if you want to know one place you can find this information, I got this particular breakdown out of the letters manual. So it's in the letters manual, and I think you can also find it online. So if you don't have a sequence, then there's lots of them out there you can find for free. All right. Then we also do from simple to complex on our orthographic conventions. So again, I'm going to show you where you can find our state resources on this, but we start with CVC, and then we move to the silent E rule. Then we move to digraphs, vowel teams, silent letters, R-controlled vowels, and the final stable syllables. So it's a logical sequence from simplest to most complex. Most programs follow this kind of a sequence. I haven't really run into many that do not. I can't even think of one right now that doesn't follow a similar sequence. Okay, so we're going to look at this, if I can figure this out. Okay, so I'm going to, let me drop in that link really quick because I keep telling you I'm going to, and then I haven't done it yet. But here is a link to the resources for today. Let me see if I can get that going for us. Hang on just a second. Control C. Uh-oh, my chat disappeared now. Chat. Okay. In here, I have linked our literacy progression. Really great reading does after digraphs. Okay. That's interesting, Tanya. I didn't know that. I have never taught really great reading, though. Yes, I will email everything to you guys today or in the morning, but probably today. Okay, so I've linked that in there, and you can see the literacy progression is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. So you can find this for your grade level. So here we go. You can see that in kindergarten for spelling, we have CVC words, and then the state standards say that same thing we talked about: consonants, short vowels, digraphs, consonant blends, and silent E. This is not in order. This is what you cover in first grade. The ones that are bolded are new to the grade level. So in kindergarten, they've learned consonants and short vowels. In first grade, we're going to introduce the vowel, consonant, silent E, blends, and digraphs. Most programs do the silent E, then blends, then digraphs. I think Reading Horizons does blends. I can't remember if it does it before or after. Were you able to get that document? It might say it was blocked. So let me see. Okay, I'm getting some messages about that's not working, but if it's not, I'll work on it here when I get a chance. Okay, and then in first grade, okay, it's asking you to request access. Okay, if you'll give me a second, I will do that when you guys are in breakout rooms. In first grade, we also start talking about irregularly spelled words. And then in second grade, we're doing all the skills we did before, but we're adding trigraphs, vowel digraphs, and R-controlled vowels. I know many programs start R-controlled vowels in first grade. It's okay if they learn that in first grade, but in our state, they don't have to master it until second grade. But yes, they will probably start learning those in first grade. Same with some of these the vowel digraphs start in first grade, but they have to have them mastered. And then third grade, sorry, we add the diphthongs, the schwa, soft, hard and soft C and G. We taught that in second grade, but it doesn't have to be mastered until this grade, and silent letters. So this literacy progression is available on our frameworks. And so I've linked all those things for you there. So it helps you know what's expected. We also need to be teaching those 6 syllable types. And I don't have time in our time today to really teach those to you guys or give you strategies for those, but you can get out there and find all kinds of things. And I know that you do teach these in your phonics and spelling programs, but these are the 6 syllable types that students need to know. And then we see also that is in our state standards. In second grade, they do closed. This is when they have to have them mastered. Of course, they're going to be introduced earlier, but closed, open, you can see here, I don't have to read to you, but you can see here how the bold ones are the new ones for the grade level that must be mastered by the end of that grade. All right, and all of that is on the literacy progression. And when I get that fixed for you, you'll be able to look. In grades 4th and up, sometimes even in 3rd grade with our state standards, we're going to really start focusing on mastering prefixes, suffixes, base words, Latin roots, and using some of that morphology to decode unfamiliar words. So in 1st grade in our state, we use word parts just to define words. So that's when we're starting to say, oh, I see an ing, that means it's happening right now. I see an ed, that means it happened in the past. My kindergarten granddaughter knows that an S means more than one. So we can teach it earlier, but remember, these are the grade levels of mastery. And then we're using them to determine the meaning of new words and using those word parts in 2nd and 3rd. And then in 4th grade is when we really start hitting those Latin roots and getting deeper into our prefixes and suffixes. So you can see what the state requires, and then your programs can be adjusted to however we need to do. So I'm going to try a breakout room. I haven't done this in one of my sessions before, but I think, hey, I'm up for the adventure. We're going to have you discuss what areas of spelling is most difficult with your students. And let's just talk about the struggles that we're having with spelling instruction in your classroom, because I find that when I talk to other teachers, that's when I learn the most about these things. So just talk about what's difficult, some struggles, and maybe some things that have helped you. And we're going to do that for 5 minutes. And let me see, I think I have about 30 people here. So we'll do 7 breakout rooms. And let's see. Okay, that should give a good amount of folks for each room. And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. If you would choose one person from your group that would share something that you guys talked about, that would be amazing. We're going to have a little bit of share time, and I would love to hear where it's difficult, what struggles you've had and maybe some suggestions. And I need one brave person from each group to be our sharer outer. All right, I'm going to open the room. It may move you there.
No, one said having
Go ahead. I'm
one
sorry.
one said that they have them, with the younger kids sound it out on a sticky note first to see, kind of where they're at and what they're hearing. That goes
Mhm.
along with what someone else mentioned about the if they have a speech issue or hearing issue, what they're writing down may not even be anywhere near what the spelling is because that's how they're interpreting it. And then I shared that when I was younger, I was really bad at spelling. So my mom got me a book from Scholastic, which they still make, where you can look up the words. It's commonly misspelled words, and you look it up in red, and they'll have, if there's 4 common ways to misspell, like the word definitely. That's always a tricky one for people. They add letters, take away things. You can look it up how you would spell it, and then in black, it gives you the correct spelling of the word. So I shared that I had 2 of those in my classroom because they still make the book, and my kids will access that when they
Well,
are help.
so I spoke on this a little bit on Monday, but when we're having kids write, when we're doing that drafting, we don't want them worrying so much about spelling because it does take that cognitive load. So we got to kind of train them that when we're drafting, let's just get our ideas down, because when we revise and edit, then we can go back and fix the spellings. And so hopefully that would help with that cognitive load. Now, as far as worksheets and stuff, you have to just make a decision as a teacher. Okay, we've already learned this spelling pattern. So yeah, you better spell it right on this worksheet. and we're doing a phonics sheet, yeah, you have to spell it right. But if it might be in science and social studies, as long as they can get their point across, and maybe it's words they haven't learned to spell, then I wouldn't take off for spelling on that. So
Yeah,
you've got
and
to
that's
decide
where
if,
we kind of landed with that too.
yeah,
in our,
you've got
like,
to make those decisions. What am I looking for? If I'm looking for organization in my writing, then I'm probably not going to grade for spelling on that. So, but I do like kids to be responsible for spelling words they've already learned. If we've already really worked a pattern, and it's then you need to be responsible for continuing. It's like turning it over in the back, and we're about to run out of time, so I'm going to say I'm going to go over today, and if you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. If you need to leave, it will not hurt my feelings, because we haven't even got to the part about strategies yet, but there are some strategies to address some of these things that we're talking about. So if you need to leave, I understand. If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. So yeah, those are really great comments. Thank you for sharing that with your group. Group 5. Nobody. Group 6.
In group 6, we talked about the struggle, basically, I think someone else already mentioned it, of having to go back and teach the rules to students who don't know them in the upper grades. And I've taught a lot of math, and then just starting to go down second grade with my first year in second grade. So what that spoke to me is the importance of, I really need to focus on those rules for the
Mhm.
kids. So it's good for me to hear that and know how it really affects the upper grades.
It does. And it really, like they said, it really slows them down in writing. So that's why we have to scaffold sometimes and say, don't worry about your spelling today. Let's just really think about our whatever we're working on in writing that day. So and we can see how spelling is so integral to reading and writing. And that is why I wanted to share this stuff today. Group 7, it looked like they didn't have any talking going on in their group, so I'm going to skip that group right now, and we're going to move on to some how to teach spelling. Spelling must be taught, not caught. And I thought that was pretty telling, because back when I went in the college in the early 80s, we just exposed them to all the words and they were supposed to catch them. And it didn't work for them. And as we can see from our science of reading research, that we have to actually teach these things. If you ever get the chance to do a letters or letter type training, do it, because I have learned more through that than I probably did for 20 something years of my teaching. We want our teaching to be explicit, sequential, and I've showed you those literacy progressions. Also, I've dropped in the chat those resources so you can see some of those resources. And that if you open that resource, Kathy, the attendance link is also in that resource, so you can get it from there. We want it to be cumulative. It builds on itself. Multisensory. I talked about some multisensory things, and we'll see that here. And then we really need to be data driven. I love whichever group mentioned that they do it by student level, that have different spelling lists going on in their class. Screeners are really essential. We don't want to be sitting down with the little guy doing silent E-words if they are already way past that. So, we want to do that. So we use those screeners. I didn't put much in here on screen. I didn't put anything in here on screeners that you can use, because I know districts already have some of those things. We need to build a solid foundation in letter formation and sound recall. If they don't know how to form the letter and they don't know how the sound of the letter, they're not going to be able to spell. So that's where our kindergarten and pre-K teachers really come in. We need frequent and distributed practice. We don't want to always do the same kind of practice every day. 15 to 20 minutes a day should be spent on spelling instruction. If you can't get to it every day, 30 minutes 3 times a week would work as well. And we always want to apply it to writing. We're not going to learn those words in isolation. We need to always apply it to writing, because we got to transfer it from here to here. I don't know about you. I gave spelling tests for 28 years. And the last 7 years, I changed how I did spelling, and my kids could spell in other places. But my first 21 years, I did a traditional spelling test. We turned it over to the back. Let's dictate a sentence, and they would spell that word wrong on the back. They couldn't transfer it into writing. So I learned when you know better, you do better. And so I learned to do better, and I learned how to help them use it everywhere that they go now, and not just on that spelling test on Friday. And then that word's out of my life for the rest of my life. So we want to make sure that we're applying it. So here's some instructional strategies. I've linked some UFly things inside of your document where you can get all of this sound wall stuff. We could do a whole 3 hours just on sound walls. My speech therapy daughter says sound walls are wonderful. Vowel Valley especially. And instead of always doing just a traditional word wall, as we learn the sounds of these vowels, we would put words with the different spellings of those vowel sounds as we learn them in our phonics program. And so kids have a mouth visual and a good keyword, not just any old keyword, but a good keyword for the sound. And then we could add words underneath. And so it's really powerful for students, especially the Vowel Valley. The other one is good, but Vowel Valley is, if I was going to start with one, I would start with the Vowel Valley. You can go to those UFly links and they have all the things for you to print out. It's all free. Some schools already do this. I know Teacher Pay Teacher has stuff as well, but UFly is awesome. And I linked in a ton of different resources from UFly into your deal. Grapheme mapping. I know a lot of you already do this, but there were some that were unfamiliar when I did this in person. So we're going to use those Elkonin boxes. I linked some of those for you as well to help kids say the word, tap the sounds, count the sounds, circle boxes for the number of sounds, and then they can pull those chips or those blocks down into them and then do that. So I'm going to just show you one. My word is rain. So I don't know why it went to that slide. I'm sorry, but I would have the kids say rain and we would tap the sounds. A, n. I would have them do it on their desk, but y'all can't see my desk, but a, n. Okay, how many sounds did I hear? I heard 3. So I would circle 3 boxes. No dots are there yet. I would circle the 3 boxes. Now I heard 3 sounds. So let's pull down a chip. A, n. How many sounds? I had 3 sounds. And so then, yes, it's in really great reading, Tanya. It's also in lots of programs because it's a really research-based practice. Then, now it wants to do it. So, a, n. And now I'm going to add underneath, I'm going to add that letter. You can use magnetic letters, you can use letter cards, or you can do it on paper. Okay, now I know it's a long vowel sound and I've learned that vowel pattern. So I'm going to put my vowel team here because if I put the letter A, it would say ran. And so that's not my word. And then, so my word is rain. I hear the rain on the roof. We always transfer those words into writing or reading or both. Okay. And then another thing is we're really going to work on word patterns. So I'm going to keep with the A theme. And so we teach explicitly when to use AY and when to use AI. And we do lots of practice with sorting those words, writing words that have those patterns. So we can use our boxes to practice, and then we can move into sorting words. We always want to get into some decodable text. I've linked a bunch of decodable text for you in your session and a guide. And then we're also going to use those in sentences and notice how, we want them coding or noticing or color coding those words that they found. I like to do some of the decodable text I linked for you are just printouts. I like to use the printouts and not my real books so they can actually go in and highlight in different colors the different ways the words are spelled and finding those words in the text. And then contrasting those patterns, doing word sorts. I think I put in a word sort builder for you in there as well, so that you can go and look at those things. After our session, take a few minutes and just go through all my links. I found some really cool stuff. Dictation is huge. Don't skip it. It's a transfer piece that transfers the skills that you've learned in to writing and reading. So do dictation often, especially when you're learning a new skill. And we would want to dictate words and sentences. Even back in 1995, I taught first grade for the first time, and I was trained in the Writing Road to Reading, which is based on the Orton Gillingham research. All my first graders were reading by January, and we did dictation every single day. It bored me senseless, but they learned to read using that dictation. A lot of the programs like Reading Horizons, Saxon Phonics, Standard SLB, I can't remember what it stands for by Payne, all of those programs are based on that same kind of research. So there's steps to it. We're going to say the word, we're going to get the sounds, and then we're going to write it as they say the sounds. So for rain, they would put a, and you want to hear that going on as they're writing. Then we would spell that word out loud together. After we've written the words that we're going to write today, maybe it's just 5 words that we've done with that pattern, then we would do a short sentence with with 1 or 2 of those pattern words. We play all day. And I would have the kids hold up. We play all day. Then they would draw 4 lines. We play all day. And then they would hold that in their head as they draw those lines. And then they can go back and write the sentence. Okay, so we're out of time, so I'm going to skip through that. Immediately show the sentence correctly and the words correctly, and let them correct their errors. We don't want to wait and look at it later and give it back to them and expect them to be able to make corrections and understand. We need to do immediate correction. So that's why we're not dictating 20 words and 8 sentences, 5 words, 1 or 2 sentences, and so that we can give that immediate feedback. Assessing, one of the when I really saw a turnaround in my kids being able to spell in other places is when I did test on the words. And I've looked up research for you on that. It says every 5 to 10 days is when you should give an assessment for your spelling list. It doesn't have to be every Friday, but from 5 to 10 days, depending on how your kids are doing, is when you should give an assessment. I always used a different word that I hadn't really practiced in class on my test. If I could spell rain and pain, and I can't think of all of them right now, and then I can go back then and give words like bait and chain and different words than I did in class, then I know that they understand the pattern and they have those sounds. So then they can spell that in other places. So they come up to me, like y'all were saying, they don't know how to spell. Miss Bears, I don't know how to spell rain. Okay, well, let's think about it. Do you remember what makes that A sound in the middle of the word? Oh, yeah. And then they can write it. So that's a great way to help them spell, is help them break it down and let them spell that word. I'm going to skip that because we're running out of time, and we're past time actually, but I want to talk about the morphology for you guys who teach older kids. Again, we're going to teach it explicitly, the spelling and the meaning. We're going to work on those base words and suffixes. We do those Latin bases, and we're going to make connections to other words. So I've got 2 strategies for you. One is called a morpheme sum, and I dropped some stuff in your handout for that as well, a place that you can build these. Break each word into its morphemes. We did that at our opening activity. We're going to write the meaning of each part and combine these to come up with a meaning. So here's an example. Trans means beyond or across. Port means to carry. And ing means it's happening right now. It's continuing action. So kids can actually write these meanings as you're learning these suffixes. So transporting means the action of carrying it across or beyond. And Dad is in charge of transporting the soccer balls to the game. And I love the color coding. It's kind of hard to see on your screen, but I have action is green, carrying is red, across or beyond is black. So it shows me those meanings. I don't know where to find these from the session. Well, I will put it in an email. And I am also sending out Cindy just said she's leaving. Cindy, I'm going to send all of this out in an email today, and even the recording. Okay, hold on. I'm getting some questions as people are having to leave. I'm so sorry I'm going long. So if we are going to do one on our own, we would have the kids write pre, view, and ing, and put what it means. And if we had more time, I'd actually have you do this, but I spent too long talking. And then again, they would come up with the action of watching something before others. We spent time previewing the book cover before reading. So it's a great way to have kids. This to me would be a great center. Let's say we've learned these 5 prefixes and these 5 suffixes. I put those up in my center with some root words and have them practice making different words using these pieces. It's a great center you can leave up all year and just add it in. This is called Word Matrix. And if I were doing this with kids, I didn't have room on my screen, but I would have put another column here for suffixes. You can find these. I put the link in your resources as well to make these, but they build words using the prefix and the base. So the black box would be what you would give them. The orange box would be what they would have on their work surface, and they would come up with the meaning. Do you have a root word canary so that
Chart.
Say it again? A root word chart so they can write the meaning? Well, you could make one. For this one, they would just write the meaning here. But you could add as many pieces to this as you wanted. And I'm going to show you this. This was my favorite thing. If I was teaching 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, I'd be doing this. These are the prefixes they've learned. These are the bases they've learned. I would probably call them bases and roots. I would probably divide that. And suffixes. Okay, and you can see down here on eruption, they have done some work there. And do you see their matrices down below that they've already done? And you can buy these, you can create these. I think the creator I put in will create these for you. They have all these cards, sticky notes. Here is a center you can leave up all year long. You add them as you're learning. These are on sticky notes. Kids can come up and pull them down and make words. Teachers can pull them down and make words. I would have this set up so when you're finished with your work, instead of pretending to read that book that you got in your desk, you know, the ones you just pull out and you just pretend you're reading so you can think about recess, I would have them come and grab one of these cards and make words and write sentences with my words and make a word bank. Or, I mean, I can just think of 100 ways you could use this bulletin board. And it's not the most beautiful bulletin board in the world, but I could put some really cute flowers up there. And I think this would be so powerful helping your students learn to read and spell. So I really, I found this is some teacher somewhere in the United States' actual bulletin board. And I tell you, I even love the fly swatter because we can come up and we can hit the parts and we can do it together as we're learning those things. I can teach from this, kids can work from it. And then it's a center that you've always got. She has a mirror hanging there so they can look at their mouths. Oh my goodness, I love it so much. We did some of this and the students really enjoyed it. Yeah, Brittany, I just get chill. I actually have chill bumps. I get chill bumps when I think about stuff that's so powerful. So I would make a morpheme wall. I believe in Reading Horizons, we do this even with 2nd grade. There's a morpheme wall. So do it because that's how they're going to be better readers, is if they know these parts. And remember, spelling is going to help us read better. All right. We got through it. It took us 15 extra minutes, but I appreciate you sticking with me today. I didn't do breakout rooms before, and that took up our extra time. We did talk about those theoretical models. I've talked about some strategies for reading and writing and spelling all together, and why it's important and what we need to be teaching our kiddos. And if you could drop in the chat, we'll do another waterfall. Just what key takeaways did you get from today? That helps me know what I need to tweak for next time as well. And then just to know if you got anything today, Tanya, how important teaching spelling is. But remember, to me, I hope you got that teaching it the way we did 30 years ago isn't probably the most effective, but we really need to be looking at where kids are and thinking about teaching spelling in patterns and in so that they can learn the language. Really, only 4% of the English words do not fit some rule for spelling. So when we say, well, English language just doesn't make sense, it really does. There's reasons for all of those rules. I'm still learning those, but only 4% of the words don't follow some kind of rule or pattern in our language. A lot of it has to do with where they have originated from, and silent letters, for examples, are letters that words that come from old English. Then some of those sounds have dropped off. Okay, word walls, word matrix. Kids, helping with those kids. Yeah, I yeah, you go through classes when I was instructional coach, and they're done and they're reading. Oh no, they're not. They're not that much time of the day. They're not. I mean, I always had time that we did read, but I always told them I was a detective and I can tell when kids are really reading and when they're pretending to read. And this is how I know you're really reading. And I would teach them that even in second grade. But anyway, yeah, giving them something to do that's related to what you're learning when they're finished is so powerful, and it helps them transfer those skills. And I think a lot of times we don't get to transfer. So language comprehension is forever growing. Yes, that's true. Matrices, morphemes, transferring the skills. Yeah, dictation can take 10 to 15 minutes, even 5 minutes of dictation you're going to see great rewards in that. So spelling is taught, not caught. Elkanon boxes are great. Morpheme wall. I love that morpheme wall too. Breaking words down, and it is important. So thank you guys so much for all of your help. I will send out this afternoon